think we're looking at a win-win for us as the global OEMs who've had a long presence here and who really want to work with our Indian partners to sort of achieve this sort of national objective, which is obviously written behind us here. Thank you.
May I now request Commander Mukesh Bhargava, my fellow DIA founder, to share his long innings in the government and MOD and all that he has done and how we can take this whole thing forward with the government.
Thank you, Session Chair Rahul. Dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. I have the enviable task to stand between you and the lunch, so I'll be very quick. Some important points that I want to make is, with regard to, Secretary DP mentioned about the strategic sector why defense was not opened as late as 2001. So it's just been 15 years that this segment has been opened up because it was a strategic sector. Let's look at the two other strategic sector and how they performed. I'm talking about the nuclear and aerospace, where the DAE and the Department of Space, they focused on the basic know-how and development, and the industry was involved to design, engineer, and production of equipment and systems. Industry was treated as a valuable partner, and the project monitoring and control remained with the DAE and DOS. The result, the experience was self-reliance was embedded into the policy of these two strategic sectors right from the beginning, and gaining the technology which are required for meeting the global benchmarks. The policies and the procedures were structured so that the industry plays an important role. This was enshrined right in the beginning by these two strategic sectors, which resulted into key technologies and capabilities were developed and built up in the industry. The user, R&D, and the industry moved in unison, and the nation could sustain development even under the global sanctions which were placed when the success of these two programs came public. The results is for all to know. Nuclear, India is considered today as a world-class design, engineering, and construction hub, with all the global majors chasing Indian companies for their capabilities. Indian companies today stand with their heads held high because of the policy that the Nuclear Power Corporation did. Likewise, in the space, some people mentioned, I think here mentioned about what we have been able to achieve. Aerospace also, India today is recognized as a global player. We are launching international satellites. We have set up world records in terms of number of satellites that can be launched. We went ahead of the United States in reaching the Mars, almost at the same time, even though we started 2 months late, and we did it in $75 million, whereas the film Gravity at Hollywood itself costed more than $100 million. That is the kind of frugal capability we could build within the country. Why? Because industry was actively involved right from the beginning. My company has been a proud contributor to both these strategic sectors. Now I look at the defense. We had the twin approach. A lot has been talked about the DRDO and the DPSU's ordnance factory, so I will not spend time on that. There were strengths that was brought in, there were capabilities, and there were products that were brought in. What could not happen is the no whys. We could continue to be, and I think very rightly was brought out, that we could not look at creating products that we could proudly make the Mark II ourselves. The no whys were missing. And that is where probably we can look at how that can be sorted out. Now look at the two armed forces. We have the Army and the Air Force, which followed the products that were made by ordnance factories and defense PSUs, and the Army-based workshops and the Air Force BRDs and the PSUs ensured that the life cycle support could be given for that. Navy followed a different model. It's not because I come from that service. It is a well-recognized fact that they created their own design houses right from the beginning, because there was a decision taken at the top that we will not be a buyer's Navy, but we will be a builder's Navy. And the ships and submarines were designed in-house by the two design offices, and the emphasis was that we would have indigenous equipment, ships, and submarines. A decade later, defense sector was opened up in 2001, and it became open for companies like Larsen & Toubro to participate. I'll give some of the examples of what contribution has the industry been able to make. Most of the IGMDP programs, there have been active involvement of the industry at large, including my company. Indigenous production programs for the naval, various equipments like propulsion systems, steering gears, stabilizers, CPP shafting were indigenously designed and given. Most ships have the entire material propulsion suite coming from the Indian industry. The multi-barrel rocket launcher, our chairman here and L&T both are partners to this. Recently, 2 more regiments have been ordered. And the various weapon systems like TTL and weapon launchers, WM-80. Okay, then I will move fast. I want to come to key slides. Somebody mentioned about the R&D. I think Madam Gupta mentioned from Bell. Just a snapshot of what private sector is doing. More than 500 crore have been invested by a company in development programs itself. The 2 make programs which are there, the TCS and BMS, we have been shortlisted along with Bharat Electronics, and we are also looking for a decision on the FICV. The various artillery guns, the first gun after Bofors, 39 years, would be made in India by our company, and we have already got the order for 100 ones. Order is to be signed any day. Various defense technologies, this is the graph that shows how we built up the capabilities spectrum and the domain expertise. Now, what is required is, we talked about Make in India. This is a 3-step process. Make in India, where you start doing what the Prime Minister mentioned. This is only the first step. This is to be followed by Make for India, where you customize product. Kelkar, way back, and Rahul was a member of the Kelkar committee, spoke about the product strategy. No country ever makes product for another country, and India can't be any different. You need to make the products for the Indian Armed Forces here. And that's where the Make for India, for Indian equipment has to come in, rather than buying it from outside. And finally, the third way is Make by India for the world. We need to look at the export. Secretary spoke about it. Policy need to be enabled, and we need to have global benchmarks set up within the country to make products that can go abroad. Now, what are the challenges? Deviation from the L1 model for selection of partners. Look at shifting from build to print to build to specs. Then only you would be able to make the products where you know how the Mark II can be done here. Recognize the foreground IP. Now, this is a problem we're facing on the Make programs. Both Rahul and I, we are struggling with this to see that the IP, whatever is developed, even though the government is funding it, stays with the company so that you can build up on that and bring the next generation forward. And ensure that orders, a lot of spoken about the orders. Orders should come once a product is developed. Streamline the production and facilities upgrade. They should be given to the private sector. And Secretary did mention about the test facilities would be given to industry. Now, DRDO builds technology on taxpayers' money. The industry can be given those technologies, but they ask for a royalty for that. Now, if that product is going to be exported and the company is making a profit on that, definitely royalty should be paid. But if the product is going to be sold to the MOD itself, then why should a royalty be paid? It is like double whammy, and the taxpayer is paying twice for that. There is a need, when we're talking about export, we make the launchers, but we are not allowed to make the weapons for that, the shells. That is to be done only by OFB. Only now, recently, the ammunition has been opened up for the private sector. Now, if you want to sell a system, can you sell a launcher without the ammunition? Can you sell a revolver without the bullets? And that is where the synergy with the PSU is a must. There's a lot of opportunities for technology development under the Make. And if you look at the strengths and weaknesses of public and private, I'll not go through the slide, they're actually complementary. And this is what brings out the success formula for defense manufacturing in India is a synergy between the strengths of the public and the strengths of the private, because they are actually 100% complementary. Well, there is a trust issue, whether private sector can be trusted. I think we have crossed that one. Last slide regarding the way ahead. 70-30 has been talked about. 1999, Abdul Kalam spoke about it. In the next 10 years, we should change it to 70-30. Now, after 18 years, we're still talking about 70-30 itself. This is what has happened. So we need to look for JVs between DPSU, DRDO, and the private sector. There was a policy. It was withdrawn. Why? Because it was totally skewed towards the public sector. If you form a JV with the public sector, you can't compete with that sector, with that company ever. Now, if I make a JV with Mazgon Dock for shipbuilding, I close down my shipbuilding business completely because I cannot compete with him. These kind of conditions were there which made this not viable. So need to change those policy and encourage consortia approach through policy changes. R&D, a lot has been talked about, and I think there is a need to open up the R&D to the private sector with DRDO, and DRDO should focus on breakthrough cutting-edge technologies. They need not make packaged food or boots or bulletproof vests. They should be left for the industry to do that. Active involvement for the development projects of the user, because if the user is involved, only then will he accept that product when it is made. If the user stays outside and comes at the time of trial, then he's saying, might as well buy it from US. So involvement of user is very important. The phased approach, first by import substitution, then develop indigenous product, and then finally export, which I mentioned. TOT under buy and make should be given, have 2 lines of production, which is enshrined in the make program. Users to have a choice of production partner. JVs between public-private, life cycle support. GOCO model. The success of the nuclear submarine program is only possible because we followed a government-owned, corporate-operated model. We have infrastructure where the taxpayers' money is being spent existing at the mammoth scale under the PSUs. Can that infrastructure not be optimally utilized by the private sector also becoming a partner and making use of that? After all, it is the taxpayers' money. Upgrade the programs which are reserved only for the PPP consortia, and tweak the offset policy so that we get technology what we need, not what the foreign OEM wants to give. Industry, Secretary mentioned, has come of age and should be treated as a national asset and not as a pariah, which has been done hitherto. The technology maturity has been achieved in collaboration with the DRDO, as well as in-house product development. I mentioned about the strategic partner. I think there's a need, crying need of the hour to have a strategic partner. Secretary mentioned about the level playing field. Strategic partnership is a part of that, and if they want to really implement, this should happen. DRDO should freely share the developed technology with the industry. Then only the Make in India would become a reality. DPSU, private sector should collaborate for export market. Now, some of the countries that we went, somebody mentioned about the track record. We have a product, but we have not yet been able to sell it to the Indian Navy because it is still being nominated to the PSUs. Now, when you go to the foreign country, there's only one nation and the country of those nations that are able to sell the product that their own country does not buy, and that's Israel. Nowhere else, because anywhere you go to sell your product, they will say, have your nation bought it? And that is where the big problem comes. If we partner with the PSU, the track record of the PSU helps you in getting that order. Product strategy I mentioned, and finally, we need more programs under the IDDM, Buy Indian and Buy and Make Indian. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for taking more time.
Thank you. Are there any burning questions which our panelists need to answer, or we could bring this session to close and move for lunch? Move for lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sirs. Ladies and gentlemen, I request everybody to kindly proceed for lunch. Lunch break is for next 45 minutes. So I'll see you back in the next 45 minutes at the banquet hall for our third technical session for the day. Thank you. Also, please, one special announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, I would request your attention, please. If you do not have your lunch coupons, please connect with our team members. If you do not have a lunch coupon in your kit, please connect with our team members over here. Also, there's a special lucky draw for the LG V20 mobile phone. So if you have not submitted your visiting card yet at our Lucky Draw coupon Lucky Draw desk outside, please do that. Please do submit your visiting cards for the Lucky Draw, which is going to take place after the lunch break. This Lucky Draw is a chance to win the LG V20 mobile phones at the registration desk outside. If you have not registered yourself, please do get yourself registered. Take your delegate kit, which has a lunch coupon. If you do not have a lunch coupon, please connect with our team members over here. Thank you.